And of course, the satanic, pedophilic Illuminatists from Disney are also associated with the number 23. So remember when I told you about the Roman general Julius Caesar, who was stabbed 23 times? You see, once again, this is symbolism of July 23rd. You see, the month of July, the etymology, is actually named after Julius Caesar. So the 7th month is named after Julius Caesar, July, and the 23. Once again, you have July 23rd. And you'll notice the related numerology of the 7 and the 23. And I also said to keep an eye on the 5 and the 11 as well, which we'll get into later. Now remember that on July 23rd, when Sirius rises, it's the beginning of the annual flood season of the Nile River. So perhaps this is why they have the story of Julius Caesar and him being saved from drowning. So the ancient Egyptian ritual of July 23rd was carried over to the Roman Empire. Now the Greek god of water or of the sea is Poseidon, which is the Roman Neptune god. Now, would you believe that the Romans celebrated Neptunalia on July 23rd? So we are all familiar with the blue, watery planet of Neptune, which was discovered on September 23rd. So once again, September 23rd is 723. Remember that septum or sept means 7. Now, the deep blue sea of the underworld, or of the abyss, brings me to the house of Anubis, which of course has the symbolism of the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. Now, of course, Anubis is the god of the underworld, the jackal-headed or dog-headed god of death. And of course, Anubis is related to the god Osiris, and thus related to Sirius. Thus, the dog days of Sirius on July 23rd. So it should be no surprise that the house of Anubis is related to the sacred numerology of 23. So Anubis is the ancient Egyptian god of embalming the dead, and thus related to the sacred water. Thus Anubis ferried the dead to the underworld. And ferrying the dead to the underworld carried on to the Greek concepts of mythology. And even today we find this concept of ferrying the dead over the river to the underworld. So this is why you must pay a fare if you want to be ferried. So now you know why they ferried in Anubis when they brought him to the museum in New York. So the death fairy of the death dog Anubis gives rise to the Greek mythology of the river Styx and the death fairy, and of course the dogs that protect the souls from leaving. Now, Anubis and Osiris were also connected to the dog star Sirius in another way as well. They were related to the number 70. 70 was the number of days that Sothis or Sirius was absent from the sky, or was in the underworld. And this death theology of the killing of the king, or the dying of the king, or the god, is the same theme that is carried on throughout religions to this very day. The worshipping of the slain god. And thus the Illuminati's secret society of the death cult of the skull and bones. So like I said, death is closely associated with July 23rd, as well as the very number of 23 itself. And with the number 23, you will often find the numbers of 5, 7, and 11. So we have the Illuminati triangle of 666, and of course 2/3 is also 666. So like I said, the power element of 5 is always associated with the number 23, because 2 plus 3 is obviously 5. The power of 5 and the number 23, which is represented in the symbol that we know as the star, which is represented by the pendalpha of 5, the 5 pendalphas, which of course is made of the single triangle of L, the triangle, or the pendalpha of A, which of course in Paleo-Hebrew is the symbol of the bull with horns. And of course in my past videos I have proven that all of the ancient cultures worshipped the sacred bull god. From ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Hebrews, and to this very day, they're still worshiping the bull god. So Egypt is especially associated with the sacred bull gods, like Osiris and Isis. And of course, one of their symbols is the symbol of the pendalpha, or the star of Sirius. The relationship of Sirius and the bull. So Sirius is not only related to the bull, but also to death, which is why they slay the sacred bull. So that's why the death aspect of the star of Sirius is known as the Death Star. Remember the War of the Stars, or the Star Wars, and the Death Star? Remember I told you about the 23 in Star Wars on the final assault, where Luke Skywalker is the red number 5. Now of course Luke means Lucifer, the morning star, as in when you mourn someone when they die from death. So that's why in Harry Potter, Sirius Black is related to Black Death. So perhaps now you'll understand why we have the expression, "I'm dead serious." So this is exactly why the death cult of the Illuminati worships death. And of course, the Illuminati has taken this ancient wisdom and spread it throughout their kingdoms of the world. The symbols for Sothis or Sirius, Osiris, and Isis, the symbol of the pentalpha, as well as the obelisk, and of course the sacred cap or dome. And they have embedded their symbolism into the very fabric and heart of America, which is why you'll find the 3 symbols that represent Sirius in the very construction and layout of Washington, D.C. And remember, to the ancient Egyptians, Sirius was associated with death, evilness, and destruction, which gives the true meaning to the star, the pendalpha, or the pentagram. And you see, this is exactly why America has a pentagon. So from the Death Star Sirius, you now know why America uses the Death Star Pentagon, which is the pentagram, as their symbol, because the Pentagon is where we construct and organize and mastermind the death, destruction, and genocide across the world. And of course, they mind control the sheep to actually believe that the World Trade Center could fall with fire. And of course, they want you to believe that a jet actually flew into the Pentagon on September 11th, which happens to be the very day the Pentagon was constructed. And I am the one that discovered that Manhattan in New York was discovered by Henry Hudson on September 11th. So now you'll understand why the Illuminati places their pentagram, or their star of Sirius, the star of death, as their symbol for the military, which is why you'll find the symbol of Sirius upon all of the vehicles of death. And now you'll also understand why the tyranny of the police officer also uses the star of death, the star of Sirius. So why do you think Chrysler, the Christ Slayer, uses the star of Sirius, the pentagram, as their symbol? Because Chrysler was the company that manufactured the vehicles that America used to cause death and destruction across the world. And the ritualistic, obsessed elite use the numerology of the 5 within the 5. And of course, all of the Illuminati blatant numerology is in plain sight. Thus, the Pentagon is 77 feet tall, or 23 meters high. And of course, they tell us that 23,000 workers work there. And I'm sure you already know about the obsession that the Illuminati elite have with the wise old owl, which is a symbol of silent death. And you'll notice the star of the United States Capitol that sits in the belly of the beast of the owl. Which is why in the belly of the beast of the Pentagon in the center is the sacred owl. The owl of death, which says, "So mote it be," which is a saying that you'll find in witchcraft and secret societies. And that's why the symbol for Satanists, as well as witchcraft, is that of the pentagram, the 5-pointed star, or the pentalpha. The same pentagram that you'll find at every Masonic lodge. And the star Sirius would rise in the east, which is why the Freemasons have the secret society of the Eastern Star. And if you are a sister of the Eastern Star, then you will now understand why the middle really does mean the words that it displays, which is fatal, which means death. So for those that don't know, the Eastern Star is for the women of Freemasonry. Thus the connection of the star, or the pentagram, with that of the goddess aspect. So the star symbol traces its roots and history to that of the female. In fact, the very etymology of the word star comes from the ancient Sumerian goddess Ishtar, Ashtarte, or Ashera. In fact, Ashera actually means the fire woman. And just like in Hawaiian, they have the goddess Pele, who is the goddess of fire. In fact, even the name Ashera has the name ash in it, like ashes of a fire. Now, witchcraft, which uses the pentagram as their symbol, has the female, or the woman, who is the queen. There is not a king. The queen is the Most High. So perhaps now you'll understand why we have a queen that runs the world, and not a king. So the pentagram, or the 5, belongs to the female. This is why the 5th day of the week, which is Friday, is named after Frigga, or Freya, which is Venus, the goddess Aphrodite. And not only is the 5th day of the week dedicated to the female, but so is the 5th month, the month of May. And that's why May is the month of the May Queen. So now you'll understand why Macy's, which is named after the month of May, uses the 5-pointed pentagram as their logo. And now you know why your wife loves to shop at Macy's.